Good morning, Tony Dattino. I am the founder and chairman of the USA Memory Championship. Let me get it right. It helps brighten up the face up a little bit so you can see what I look like. But in any case, good morning. We are into another week. It's Monday morning and off we go. The second week of April, it just seems to be zipping by. But spending a lot of time responding to people that are coming to us from this National Geographic article that was done on superhuman powers. And in that piece, there was coverage of the USA Memory Championship, and Michael Dattino and myself were mentioned in it. And from that, it has generated more people coming in to learn about memories and the skills that you can build, because I think what the writer did in it, Erica, did a fabulous job of really creating the fact that there's hope for everyone to improve their human performance in whatever physical, mental capabilities that they didn't think they had, which I thought was just superb. And in the USA Memory Championship, we've been demonstrating over the years that everyone can improve their memory regardless of age, given the desire and belief that you can, and the willingness to learn what those techniques are. So we've had a number of people now signing up for the Maximum Memory Mastery online course that are beginning to take some lessons, and then from those modules that are in it, we teach people about names and faces. So how do you remember names and faces? So the first thing you do with a name and a face is you look at a facial feature of some sort. Certainly glasses would not be a feature, because you can take these glasses off, and if you've ever noticed somebody that you knew or had seen and they had glasses on, and then you saw them the next time with their glasses off, you kind of stare at them a little bit and say, I think I recognize that face. But maybe it's a nose. Mustaches, as long as the person's keeping the mustache on for a long time, which mine has been over 50 years, probably a safe bet to look at my mustache. Maybe it's your cheekbones, maybe it's your forehead. In my case, it could be my nose. The Latino nose, we have a little bit bigger nose. Maybe it's your chin. And what you're doing is you're looking at their face so that you recognize the feature of it. And then you're taking their name and you're linking their name to that feature. So for me, I tell people to remember my name. Think of, I go to New York. I live now in Florida, but when I'm not here in Florida, I go to New York. So put a Tony. And I learned that in the Ellis Island, and taking a tour of Ellis Island, it was amazing to me that I learned that they would mark the people, the Tony, going to New York, which is interesting. On one of my tours of Ellis Island, I heard one of the tour guides talk about how they would mark people to New York with Tony, which is Tony. So there's my forehead. You got Tony. That's my first name, Anthony. Tony is good. And then I've played lots and lots of golf, and so I want you to look at a T. I want you to look at a T with a dot on my forehead. So see one of those little red Indian dots that I stick on my forehead right underneath the to New York. You put a red dot, so you mark me, dot, and then a golf T. Where is my golf T? It's at the end of my nose. So you look at to New York, that's Tony, with the dot, golf T on the under his nose. And when you look at my facial features and my forehead and my nose, you can look at me and quickly say, that's Tony Dattino. And so it's one of the techniques we teach in our online course on how do you make up fun, silly stories that help you to remember people's names. And if there's one thing that's coming out of this year's Memory Championship interest, is people worried about how do I remember people's names. It's one of the events we have. It's a qualifying event, and it's a tea party event that we do in the finals in September. And so one of the skills that people are very, very interested in learning is how do we remember people's names? And so there's a teaching segment on that, and it works. I mean, there are different variations to it in how people have learned to do it. But my goodness, our mental athletes have learned. In fact, the proof of that was when we first started doing the memory competition many, many years ago. We started with 99 pictures. In our last event before COVID shut down the live qualifying, we were up to 125. And so the mental athletes just got better and better and better in learning the techniques and building a synergy, the synergy of what I call 1+1, to where our brain begins to learn and grow, and it's just like plants. I think of it as this plant that we have here in the house. You put this little, I call it this little weed, in the middle of a jar, and the next thing you know, this thing is blossoming, it's growing. You think of your brain in that same fashion. You put one little plant in a vase, and you just let that plant just grow and grow and grow. It's amazing what these plants do. It's amazing what our brain does. And so in learning a technique of names and faces, it starts out in a very simple way. And I always tell people, start with 3. Just remember the names of 3 people that you meet at a grocery store, maybe at a dentist's office if you're going to happen to go to the dentist on a periodic basis. The folks at the counter that take your card, your insurance and things. Just remember a few names of people other than the dentist that you can use to practice and have fun with it. There's no one rigid way that you have to follow this one pathway. You can try different ways of trying to remember names and faces. So for me, you may think of Mark Antony, right, from Caesar's play, and think of that's Antony, and you can call me Anthony. And now you might think of my last name, that you think of island in the middle of the sea, and you say there's a little dot in the middle of the ocean. There's a little dot, and that dot forms a T, and oh God, that's an O, and that's an ocean. And so again, you can use different techniques to remember Tony, Anthony, now it's Antony, Datino, as a way of saying, hey, you are Mr. Datino, you are Antony Datino, or you're Tony Datino. So just have fun with this. One of the things people do that I find is they make it too serious. They get too serious about it, and therefore they kind of tense up. And once you tense up and you create that stress pattern, you start creating brain interruptions. I liken that to when people can't find their keys and they get crazy and panicky. They need to get out and they're trying to find their keys and they're in a panic. And I say, worst thing you can do, just take 2 minutes. Slow down the rush. Take a couple of minutes, refocus. Where did you last have your keys? And pop, it'll come back. But back to the memory championship this year. So we have in the USA Memory Championship website, we have a course, a Maximum Memory Mastery of names and faces. It's one of the courses that people really enjoy learning about and having some fun, and then practicing. I always tell people, don't try to jam through a whole bunch of lessons until you've at least had enough of proficiency in one to where you feel that you're a little above your average start. And make it fun, make it easy. We have numbers in there, so how do you remember digits of numbers? And that, of course, is one of our qualifying events. We give people strings of numbers, and they have to recall those strings of numbers. And so there's a skill for how you remember numbers. And there are people that are cab drivers or Lyft or Uber drivers. They want to remember addresses and numbers of places they're going. If you're trying to go to a new location and you go to the web and you pick up an address of some place you want to go to, you obviously want to remember those numbers so that you get to the right street and you get to the right number and not knocking on someone's door. As some places, if you follow news, they knocked down the wrong house on the wrong lot because they had the wrong numbers in terms of what they were able to remember. In this case, writing down the wrong number. But some people try to remember it by my mental capacity and don't want to take up a piece of paper and pencil and write it down because they think their brains are going to remember it and they do it the wrong way. We have what's been popular and bumping into it with people signing up is what we call the loci or the Roman room method. Loci from the Latin term of location. And what the Latins, the Italians learned in the great minds of Caesar's time, if we can think of things in our brain in a room and we can lock into the sequencing of objects in that room, if we just put our minds into seeing the sequence of those objects as an anchor and then link words to it and make up little silly stories, it's amazing how many words we can remember in a sequence if we just have enough of anchors. So when we talk with people and teach them, we tell them, let's get 20 anchors. Let's start with 20 things in your brain that you can snap those off. They're well locked into your memory, and you can recall them very easily. And then we'll start putting things to remember attached to that. When we're having people go through paragraphs of information, we'll have them lock in the key facts of what they're trying to remember, and we'll have them attach it to their anchors. And then just following their anchor around, they can repeat the whole story in terms of what's in there. So we bring the 25th USA Memory Championship to continue to demonstrate to people that there are skills and things you can learn that can make a difference in your own ability to learn as you want, if you choose in life, your ability to remember people that you meet in networking environments, your ability to graduate in your profession, if you have different professional exams that you want to pass and you want to move forward in your career path. And of course, if you're somebody that uses numbers a lot, a financial advisor, or somebody that needs to work with numbers on a regular basis, ways of remembering critical things, or if you're a Uber driver or a Lyft driver, you may want to remember the numbers of where you're supposed to be going to, and I know we can lock those in and you can follow that on your way. So we sometimes make ourselves a little bit lazy in terms of our mental health, but if you put all of these together, what the world of science and neuroscience is telling us today is it helps build muscle-like things in your brain, which helps with your cognitive function. And mental challenges are just one of the best things that we can do to help us to maintain a strong, healthy brain and sustain that as we get older. And with that, it's time to get off to the Memory Institute. We have a very special session this morning. I'll probably be talking about that again on Wednesday. Plus, I have a college class that we're doing on Wednesday, and I'll talk about those both on my Live with Tony come Wednesday. So stay tuned, and let's see what I'm doing today with Memory Institute and Friday at UCF University.